Thank you. I hope you'll all take advantage of catching the speakers after this symposium as well to answer questions. Next is Dr. Paolo Tagliabue from Milan, Italy.
Hi, good afternoon. I would like to thank Vapoten for inviting me to this lunch symposium. I work in Italy, in Monza, is a city very close to Milan. And in the next 10-15 minutes, I will discuss with you some issues arising from the conference on high-flow nasal cannula held in Milan last Friday. I'm starting with some data, from Vermont Oxford Network. The 90% of Italian neonatal intensive care, the Italian neonatal intensive care unit take part to the Vermont Oxford Network. Its data gives a reliable picture of the entire neonatal population. As we can see, over the last 6 years, there is an increase in the number of newborn treated with high-flow nasal cannula, but the number in Italy, as you can see, the green bar are so far away from the number of the world that there is the bar blue, the blue bar, as you can see. And we were discussing why in Italy so few newborn underwent high-flow nasal cannula. High-flow nasal cannula is simple to use for the nurses. The nurses are keen on it, and it is comfortable for the newborn, as said before me, Kevin Ives. But why they don't use? Why in Italy we don't use so frequently this device? I realized that there are 3 main reasons. The first of that is the extensive use of nasal CPAP in our countries. The neonatologists are skilled on it. They don't want to change and safe and effective respiratory support, particularly in the primary care of respiratory distress syndrome. The second is that the results of randomized clinical trial are awaited. They are not yet published. We heard today the result of 2 of them. And the third, and for me is the more important, the pressure generated by the high flow and transmitted to the lungs is unknown and unpredictable. We spent the few minutes talking with this problem. The Italian neonatologists are worried, I think the neonatology in all the world, that the pressure might be too high and it could overdistend the lung, as Neil Feiner highlighted in this editorial in 2009, or it may be too low, and not enough to stabilize alveoli, immature alveoli that are prone to collapse. And this data of Kubica concluded his work saying that using cannula of 0.2 centimeter, this is the cannula for premi, the high-flow nasal cannula can generate some level of CPAP when the mouth is closed, but the highest pressure achieved was 4.5. In this experimental study with a simulated infant lung model, the author concluded that clinically important pressure were not generated by high flow with a standard nasal cannula. These conclusions reinforce the concerns of the neonatologists about the effectiveness of high-flow therapy in the prevention of the alveolar collapse. And in this regard, I want to show you 2 not yet published study, Italian study, that are studying the lung volumes and the lung mechanics in newborns treated with nasal CPAP and high-flow nasal cannula. The first of them is ongoing in my unit, and we are studying preterm baby in nasal CPAP with optoelectronic plethysmography. Optoelectronic plethysmography is a system that we validated in 2010. There are 6 cameras that the 6 cameras detect the chest movement. They send the information to a personal computer. The computer integrates the data. It allows us to measure lung volume, tidal volume, and the compartmental change in volume, like rib cage, chest wall, and abdomen. The aim of this study is to measure the lung volume in a group of preterm newborn of gestationally or an average gestational age of 30 weeks. In the first day of life, we want to measure the lung volume corresponding, the change in lung volume corresponding to the change in pressure. And we start from a pressure from 0, step by step, with step of 2 centimeters of water. We increase the pressure of CPAP from 0 to 10, and then we decrease it, the pressure from 10 to 0. We recorded it at the different steps, the blood gases, some clinical parameters, and the lung volume. This is the preliminary result. The results are preliminary, and so they are not consequently definitive, but they can help us to understand and to the problem. We can see a significant increase of blood gases of the PO2 at the step from 0 to 4, corresponding to a decrease of oxygen requirement at the same step to 0 to 4. There were no further improvement in oxygenation at the other steps. What we really not expected is that the volume are not changed. There are no the change of volume correlated to the change in pressure that we expected, as we see in the newborn intubated and mechanically ventilated. Can you see in this part of the slide that there is a close correspondence between the CDP and the total chest wall volume, both in the incremental and the decremental phase of the pressure curve. In our population, the tidal volume didn't change. There is really a slight decrease of tidal volume at the highest value of CDP. But what is really surprising, at the end expiratory lung volume does not change. From 0 to 10, the end expiratory volume is the same. We can presume that in newborn spontaneously breathing with mild or moderate respiratory distress syndrome, this newborn, they are able to keep the lung open themselves by means of expiratory braking. So they don't need pressure to keep open the lung, and so because they don't need pressure because the lungs are already open. Probably the application of CPAP reduces the respiratory effort, but in our study, unfortunately, we did not measure the work of breathing. The other study that I want to show you is performed at the University of Milano in cooperation with Politecnico of Milano. Is a comparative study between nasal CPAP and high-flow nasal cannula. We measured the lung function with respiratory inductance plethysmography. 20 preterm newborns were studied with a gestational age of 31 weeks. It is a randomized crossover study. Each newborn is studied in nasal CPAP and in high-flow nasal cannula, and they were studied at each value of flow or the pressure. The sequence of pressure or of the flow are random. This is the setup. There is a system for the measure of pharyngeal pressure, and this is the respiratory inductance plethysmography. This is the setup in vivo, and these are the results. This is the relationship between the flow and pharyngeal pressure. there is a relationship, but there is a wide variability. This is the pharyngeal pressure and the variability between nasal CPAP and pharyngeal pressure. From a theoretical point of view, the two values should be the same, but they are not the same, probably for the leakage or for the effect of the spontaneous breathing. There is no slide, but I say to you that the value of pharyngeal pressure are mainly lower than 4 centimeters of water, and only in one case, the pharyngeal pressure reached the value of 7. The comparison between high flow nasal cannula, this is the dark blue, and the CPAP at the same level of pharyngeal pressure show that there are no difference in respiratory rate, there are no difference in tidal volume, there is only a no significant decrease in respiratory rate in the high flow nasal cannula, probably a consequence of the reduction of dead space or the washout of the dead space. There are no difference in dynamic resistance or dynamic compliance. There is no difference in work of breathing, and all the blood gases are in the normal range, and there are no difference between the high flow nasal cannula and the nasal CPAP. Our conclusion on this argument: high flow nasal cannula does generate a positive pressure. The pressure needed in spontaneously breathing preterm infant with mild moderate RDS are low. The amount of positive pressure is usually low, but might be enough to allow optimal gas exchange in some pathological conditions, such as mild or moderate RDS or prematurity. High flow nasal cannula rarely reaches a high level of positive continuous pressure, reducing our concerns about the potential overdistension of the lungs. Of course, further larger study should confirm this data. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you'll all take advantage of catching the speakers after this symposium as well to answer questions. Next.